Welcome to Everyone Should Learn Virtue from the teachings of Musonius Rufus, vegetarian, part 1 of 2 on words of wisdom. Gaius Musonius Rufus was one of the great Stoic philosophers of the Roman Empire. He lived in the 1st century CE and was born in Volsini, an ancient city of Etruria which is now part of present-day Italy. His philosophy focused on the study and practice of virtue. He believed that everyone is capable of being virtuous. However, people who had not learned the skills of ethical living could not be expected to live without error. Thus, he lived and promoted a simple and frugal lifestyle, which included the learning of self-control, modesty, courage, and benevolence. He was a vegetarian and taught that being mindful of one's diet was a vital virtue. His students included Roman noblemen, senators, and future philosophers. In the years following, his wisdom continued to have an impact on later Stoic philosophy, as well as early Christian moral thought. Epictetus, another great Stoic philosopher, was his most notable student, whose principles were deeply influenced by his mentor. Although the works of Gaius Musonius Rufus are mentioned in the writings of Epictetus, most have been lost through time. However, his philosophical teachings in the form of aphoristic sayings and discourses were preserved by his students. This was later translated and included in Cora E. Lutz's book, Musonius Rufus, the Roman Socrates. Today, it is a delight to present the discourses entitled, That Women Too Should Study Philosophy, and Should Daughters Receive the Same Educations as Sons, where the wise philosopher encourages everyone to study the practice of virtue. That women too should study philosophy. When someone asked him if women too should study philosophy, he began to discourse on the theme that they should, in somewhat the following manner. Women as well as men, he said, have received from the gods the gift of reason, which we use in our dealings with one another, and by which we judge whether a thing is good or bad, right or wrong. Likewise, the female has the same senses as the male, namely sight, hearing, smell, and the others. Also, both have the same parts of the body, and one has nothing more than the other. Moreover, not men alone, but women too, have a natural inclination toward virtue and the capacity for acquiring it, and it is the nature of women no less than men to be pleased by good and just acts and to reject the opposite of these. Let us examine in detail the qualities which are suitable for a woman who would lead a good life, for it will appear that each one of them will accrue to her most readily from the study of philosophy. In the first place, a woman must be a good housekeeper, that is, a careful accountant of all that pertains to the welfare of her house. It is my contention that these are the very qualities which would be present particularly in the woman who studies philosophy, since obviously each of them is a part of life, and philosophy is nothing other than knowledge about life. And the philosopher, as Socrates said, quoting Homer, is constantly engaged in investigating precisely this, whatsoever of good and of evil is formed in thy halls. But above all, a woman must be modest and self-controlled. She must not be a slave to desire, not be contentious, not lavish in expense, nor extravagant in dress. Such are the works of a virtuous woman, and to them I would add yet these: to control her temper, not to be overcome by grief, and to be superior to uncontrolled emotion of every kind. Now these are the things which the teachings of philosophy transmit, and the person who has learned them and practices them would seem to me to have become a well-ordered and seemly character, whether man or woman. As for justice, would not the woman who studies philosophy be just? Would she not be a blameless life partner? Would she not be a sympathetic helpmate? Would she not be an untiring defender of husband and children? And would she not be entirely free of greed and arrogance? And who better than the woman trained in philosophy? And she certainly of necessity, if she has really acquired philosophy, would be disposed to look upon doing a wrong as worse than suffering one, as much worse as it is the baser, and to regard being worse off as better than gaining an unjust advantage. Moreover, who better than she would love her children more than life itself? What woman would be more just than such a one? Now as for courage, certainly it is to be expected that the educated woman will be more courageous than the uneducated, and one who has studied philosophy than one who has not, and she will not therefore submit to anything shameful because of fear of death or unwillingness to face hardship, and she will not be intimidated by anyone because he is of noble birth, or powerful or wealthy, no, not even if he be the tyrant of her city. For in fact, she has schooled herself to be high-minded, and to think of death not as an evil, and life not as a good, and likewise not to shun hardship, and never for a moment to seek ease and indolence. So it is that such a woman is likely to be energetic, strong to endure pain, prepared to nourish her children at her own breast, and to serve her husband with her own hands. Would not such a woman be a great help to the man who married her, and a good example for all who know her? Should daughters receive the same education as sons? Once, when the question arose as to whether or not sons and daughters ought to be given the same education, he remarked that trainers of horses and dogs make no distinction in the training of the male and the female. In the case of humans, however, it would seem to be felt necessary to employ some special and exceptional training and education for males over females, as if it were not essential that the same virtues should be present in both alike, in man and woman, or as if it were possible to arrive at the same virtues, not through the same, but through different instruction. And yet, that there is not one set of virtues for a man and another for a woman is easy to perceive. In the first place, a man must have understanding, and so must a woman, or what pray would be the use of a foolish man or woman? Then it is essential for one no less than the other to live justly.
Vegan, because to torture and murder another innocent being is beyond brutality, beyond inhumanity.
Gracious viewers, thank you for joining us today for Words of Wisdom.